Welcome everybody to The Harsh Truth. Today we're going to be going over and reviewing Marvel and Netflix's Defenders. Alongside Aaron Glazier, I'm Frank Gilbert. Stick around, we're going to talk about this kick-ass show.
I don't know, I felt kind of weird about the beginning of it. It didn't feel quite as fluid as I feel like it should have been as they were all coming together. The first episode was definitely slow. We didn't see a whole lot. But when you know going into a series that there's only going to be 8 episodes, I expect there to be a lot more in the first couple just to kind of cope with everything. The fact that we didn't get to anybody meeting each other until the second episode, and then that was just like these two guys met up over here, these two guys met up over here, and everything kind of just went their separate ways from that point. And then we didn't get everybody together until the end of the third episode. It's just kind of weird for me. I don't know how you feel about that.
I thought we didn't need as much character setup, and we already know all these characters and their individual stories. Right. So the fact that it took so long to kind of mesh them together, I thought we could have got to that in the first one, maybe 2 episodes, and then had a whole other episode to explain more of the plot of the Defenders.
Right.
And have a little bit more story, because there were a few holes here and there it doesn't quite explain. How does Bakudu manage to come back to life after the events of Daredevil?
See, the thing is I
Fist, rather, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I already said, it's just weird seeing it slow as it was. If they were gonna focus on character development that early on, I feel like it should have been more on the characters we don't already know. In the first 3 episodes, we see Sigourney Weaver's Alexandria maybe a handful of times, if that, and every time it's just, I know absolutely dick about you. There's no knowing other than that she's associated with the Hand what she is. We know that Madame Gao listens to her and does what she says, and that's about as far as we know.
Well,
and we know she's dying, and that's it.
You need to keep a little mystery for her character as long as you can, though, because that's kind of what draws you into who she is.
Yeah.
So you reveal that little bit of who she is, episode by episode until you get till later in the series or the season, and then you start to figure out, okay, this is who she is. Like when Jessica figures out that she was the same person through all these incarnations of this company that was changing hands, that it's the same person that had been signing these documents, and so on, all the way back till, the 1800s or whatever.
Right.
That kind of thing. So kind of spacing out her story a little bit, leaving her shrouded in a little bit of mystery until later in the season, was probably a cool thing for her character, because everybody wanted to know who Sigourney Weaver was, because it's not just like they threw some actor in there. You went and got Sigourney Weaver. This character has to be really kick-ass for you to justify calling Sigourney Weaver up to play it anyway. And I think that Sigourney Weaver is really the brightest spot along this whole thing, because she's not one of those actresses that just pops in for cameos. She carries things.
Right.
And I think she in large part carried the show all the times that she was in it, even maybe accidentally stealing it at a couple of points. Because her star is a lot brighter than anybody else that we've got in the Marvel Netflix universe right now.
I would agree for the most part with that. The only reason that I kind of am on the fence about that is while she may be the brightest star as far as, all these other people are getting their up and coming in Marvel Netflix, and she's coming in already with movies and other stuff that she's been doing for, decades now. We're seeing a reintroduction of people from previous seasons. Like Madame Gao's now been in just about, I think with the exception of Jessica Jones, she's been in every Marvel season. So I
don't think she was she in Luke Cage?
See, that's I can't remember for certain.
Because I know she was in the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, and she was in Iron Fist.
Right.
I don't think she was.
She's a recurring person that we've seen so far. And then, I mean, as far as anybody else goes, Luke Cage, we've seen him twice now, and then this makes time number 3, and then we've got Iron Fist, who a lot of people were already on the fence about in the first place.
I think a lot of people didn't like Iron Fist.
Right.
I liked Iron Fist more than most people. I thought it was good. Was it the best of the Netflix series? No, not even close, but I liked this. I liked his individual season for what it was.
Right. The only thing that I had a problem with was the end of it. Like, we cut to the end and look, it's Kunlun's missing, and that's it. And then we get like a glimpse of two people talking about, let's get revenge on this guy, and then the one person who's saying that literally has absolutely no reason to be there. The whole end of Iron Fist was obnoxious, especially considering that it was the last thing to lead into Defenders, and the only thing that, now that Defenders is out, I can say, it kind of did lead into Defenders, but the only thing that we were left with at the end of that was Kunlun's gone. How the hell were we supposed to know that was going to be pretty much the main premise of Defenders?
There's a big enough time gap to where Iron Fist and his girlfriend, I forget her name off the top of my head, are on the hunt trying to figure out exactly what happened. And Daredevil is held right up there in the Marvel Universe as being just as good as any of the movie stuff in the MCU.
Right.
I mean, because I personally put it like Daredevil's stuff is the best, then right below that is Luke Cage. Then the Defenders as a whole I would put third. And then, Iron Fist and Jessica Jones are down here somewhere. I like both the actors and the roles, and I like the shows, but they're not the quality of Daredevil or Luke Cage.
Right.
I think through phase one of whatever they're doing on Netflix, if that's what this is phase one.
I would consider it that, but
then I think that this is a pretty good way to do things. This being their first Avengers mashup thing,
right?
I think this was a pretty good way of doing things.
It turned out pretty well. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
But let's move on to episodes 4, 5, and 6, kind of the meat and potatoes of the series, of the season. What did you think when everything did finally get exposed, as we started to learn more about the characters? How did you think everything went in the middle as everything was coming together? We were finally learning the Hand's plans.
It felt a lot more pulled together than the first half, for sure, and I've mentioned that already. Stick coming into the fray was kind of like, it was obvious that it had to happen because we've got everybody had to come together for this, even all the side characters. We saw that in the first couple episodes. We saw all the side characters come in. So who's missing? Stick and Punisher are the two people that are missing. I didn't expect Punisher to be here. I hoped he would be, but it would have kind of detracted from the four heroes thing because he would have had to have been lumped in with them, and they would have been pissed off because he'd have been killing everybody. But Stick, where's Stick at? And then we find out Stick's chained to a fucking pole. Not only is he chained to a pole, dude cuts his own fucking hand off, and he still kicks ass.
Which is a cool Scott Glenn move, by the way.
Right.
He's kind of a badass actor in his own right.
But I just, and I can't remember which episode for certain it happened. I'm pretty sure it happened in episode,
I think it was near the end of episode 4 or 5 that he cuts his hand off.
No, it was the beginning of episode 4, because episode 4 was the diner scene, and he came into the diner scene. So it was the beginning. It was either the end of episode 3 or the beginning of episode 4. He cut his hand off. But I can't remember if it was episode 6 or episode 7 when Elektra finally offed him. And that, I saw it coming a full episode beforehand when everybody was sitting there and they were talking about, Matt finally admitted Elektra is my ex-girlfriend, she died in my arms. And everybody was freaking out about it, and are you going to be able to do this? And then on the other side of it, we're seeing Elektra being accused by all the members of the Hand. Is she even capable of doing this? Why'd you bring the Black Sky into this? You wasted all of our resources on this. So I knew at that exact moment she is going to have to kill somebody, or she is going to be killed by the Hand. And who can it be on this side that's going to get killed? And I was like, it's not going to be one of the four heroes. That's not a possibility. That ends the last 2 episodes being worth anything.
Well, it serves 2 purposes. One, it plays in this story, in the Defender storyline.
Right.
Plus, it also acts as kind of a teeing off point for whatever Matt is going to deal with at a personal level in the next season of Daredevil. So that whole storyline is probably going to branch off and affect Matt's psyche somehow as we get back to the Daredevil.
It also, and we'll get to that in the next part of it. It also really depends on what kind of direction they even take the third season of Daredevil. At this point, it's really, really questionable as to what's going to happen. And I did want to do some research and look up to see if I could find anything in the Marvel database about anyone named Maggie. But
well, we'll talk about that because I know I found that out. But we'll talk
Did
about
you?
it in a
Oh,
minute.
awesome.
We'll talk about that in a second. So, in the middle episodes, I love how it all kind of came to a head. When they finally did come together, there was still that little bit of inner conflict.
Yes.
Between all of them, and it's what ended up developing into Civil War in the MCU. That little bit of inner conflict, like Tony wanting to do it this way, and being a little bullheaded about things, whereas guys like Captain America just kind of like, hey, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and we need to plan and all that. I'm wondering if some of this, it may not have their own little Marvel Netflix Civil War, but I'm wondering how that continues to play as the Defender stuff plays out.
I think we're past it, honestly. As far as the end of the first season of Defenders, I think we're past we've got our creative differences on how we want to solve things. When we come together, we'll do what we have to, and I think they pulled together enough to not have a civil war like we see in the large screen. But these middle 3 episodes, there was definitely a lot of conflict. I mean, so much
on
conflict.
both sides too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
For the Defenders trying to get their stuff together and stuff going, and the inner turmoil going on in the Hand.
Well, I expect that. I expect that anyways, because as they mentioned in there, each one of them has probably tried to kill the other at least a couple dozen times. They've been alive. Well, now that we actually have a frame of reference for how long they've been alive, they've been alive for a couple thousand years, at least.
Because Jessica Jones traced those documents back, I think at least 150.
1820s
Yes.
was the furthest she could go, but they specifically referenced Pompeii, and Styx said the 5 fingers of the hand were part of the original group of monks from Kunlun, and they got banished because of their views when they found the substance. And they started doing experiments on it to not just preserve life like they were supposed to, but to preserve their own lives. And, I mean, at that point, first of all, Pompeii happened BC. So, I mean, it's been a couple thousand years. And to reference some stuff like that is just insane. I was honestly surprised to see that Gao was quite that old. And then to see how all the others, how their appearances look, how young they look, it makes me think Gao was already old to start with,
I actually kind of figured Gao was going to be one of those characters that goes back more than one lifetime because she seemed a little too wisdomed.
Well, I think we knew in the first Daredevil that she was at least more than one lifetime old. We just didn't have quite a frame of reference.
Well, I think in the first
old
Daredevil they just played it out like she was just the leader of the Asian gang.
Right.
And that was before you really get into any of the depth on her character. You don't really get that kind of depth on her character. Even I don't think she was in the second season of Daredevil a whole lot, if at all, really. But in her appearance in Iron Fist, you start to get the idea that she goes back a ways and isn't just like the person who runs, the Triad or whoever the Asian gang is. That she actually has an odd history, something that would be worth exploring, and they eventually explore in this and find out that she's one of the fingers of the hand, and she's however many thousands of years old, and and that's how you figure all that out. The way that the episode 6 ended, that conflict in the Hand kind of coming to a head, and they all end up in the same room. I think it was the end of episode 6 where Sigourney Weaver's character ends up meeting her end. Am I right?
I think you're right, because at the end of episode 6, I'm pretty sure Stick tried to kill Danny.
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw this coming too. Like, they were all focused on this option and this option, this option and this option, and the whole time I'm watching, I was like, they need the Iron Fist. You can either cut off his hands or kill him.
I didn't see
and then
it
they stop it.
I didn't see it coming because I wasn't trying to analyze it that much. But once it finally became clear that was his idea, when he knocks out Luke Cage with whatever smoke that he used, and I was like, yeah, this looks like something Stick would do. I was kind of underwhelmed by his decision to try to kill Danny
because it's so in line with how he would be.
It was like, oh, that's
so predictable.
Stick is an asshole that would do just this. That would kill one of his own guys because I mean, nothing is really sacred to Stick. I mean, he seems to have he's part of the Chase, and so he's really dedicated to his life's mission, which is fighting the Hand. And it seems like he would sacrifice Matt to do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In a heartbeat. And now he's cold, and I get that from him, and I kind of like it about him. But as soon as I saw him do that, get set up to kill Danny, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what he would do. And it didn't hit me the same way. I wanted to be surprised by it, but I really couldn't be.
Yeah, as Stick's a character.
He absolutely
is.
Now, the last couple episodes, by far, the best episodes in this season.
Yes, I do agree.
Episode 7, as they realize that what they need to do is blow up this building, the bank. I forget the name of the bank.
CSI Holdings, I think.
Something like that. But something circular bank, whatever the hell it was. But as they realize they actually need to blow this stuff up, they go and they collect all their friends because they need to get them protected because the Hand is going to go after everybody and hurt everybody you love. Kind of the same old comic book fable from just about every comic book hero.
Well, that happened in like episode 4.
Yeah, well, they're all gathered up, and then the defenders as a group are making their way towards this final confrontation with the remaining fingers of the Hand. I think at this point Bakudu had been off, or was that in episode 6? No, it was in episode.
Bakudo doesn't get off until the last episode. None of them get off until the. No, you're thinking of the black guy. That happened in episode 5.
Oh, the black guy, yeah, the one who was
white hat or whatever the hell.
The one who was the least important fingers of the Hand.
Yeah,
he was the pinky of the Hand. I didn't really like his character that much.
No,
he was kind of a waste.
He would have been if we were going to bring the Hand into Luke Cage's story arc, he would have been a great villain specifically for Luke Cage's season by itself. But as far as in the Defenders being, we've got 4 Defenders, we've got 5 fingers of the Hand. One of those fingers is shared between 2 people, Iron Fist and Daredevil. One of the fingers is just a hunter, so he's like irrelevant to the story, but the black guy would have fit perfectly with Luke Cage. Not because he's black, don't take a racist way about it, but because...
I'm tearing down your statue right now.
Exactly. But because he fits the profile of Luke Cage villains. He's like Cottonmouth and Diamondback to a way. He's the gangster South African that runs basically a militia by himself. That's pretty much Luke Cage's MO. And I think they brought him in as one of the people because he fit the demographic to help out with that. And then we've got Sigourney Weaver as leader, and she's supposed to be the one that they're all focused on. And then Bakudo was specifically Iron Fist. So, I mean, we could almost match up all the villains of the Hand to be individual villains of individual seasons of the small screen if we needed to. But I think that's what they were trying to go for when they were casting people. That's why we have this guy who doesn't really fit into the Hand in any way that makes sense.
It seemed like he was less a finger of the Hand and more just kind of like their lead henchman. Right. Because he's the guy that's actually at ground level in the city doing the stuff with whatever pawns that they're playing with in the street, these kids.
Right.
But, and sure, he's been around for however many lifetimes or whatever, but he always seemed like if anybody in the Hand was expendable early
it was
for
him.
Shock value, it was him, which makes it not much shock value.
and then it was proven completely because after his death and all of his resources as far as people are concerned, like actual like ground forces and everything, he died. We lost that section of the Hand, and then the rest of the Hand was just like, we're still just as powerful as we were without him. So
I understand their reaction when they get word of his death. That part of them's like, oh well, but I don't think it was as much like they were confident moving forward without him is that he wasn't particularly important to the Hand anyway. He was just that one guy who had been around for a while.
Yeah.
So
he's just a pusher.
Yeah, his character was kind of a waste, I thought. I really wanted to see, like, if you were going to have 5 fingers in the hand, have all 5 of them be either powerful in different ways and combined together to, for whatever nefarious purposes they're doing, or have them all be, like, equally important. Like, have his death mean something to the Hand.
Right.
When he dies, they basically are like, whatever, brush it off and
just like with the hunter guy. He's a soloist. He doesn't have an army behind him. He just does everything himself. Solo man going out in the world. It's like, I liked the idea of the Hand being this all massive criminal organization across the entire globe, but when one of the key members of the Hand has literally no ties to anything at all, what the fuck is the purpose of that? Like, how do you help this global massive organization? How are you a leader of it if you have nobody that you're leading? You know what I mean? There's this, at least with the African guy, he had most of Africa under his thumb. That made sense, even though he was the most expendable out of everybody there. We already knew Bakudo. He had a following. He was trying to take the Hand a completely different direction than Gao. We have Gao's following, heroin, that kind of thing.
Dealing with Kingpin early on,
right?
And Daredevil and all that.
But as far as this just random non-English speaking Hand member, which also blows my mind. Every other member of the Hand speaks English. Everybody in Kunlun spoke English, but this one member of the Hand doesn't speak English. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. But all he is a lone hunter. He's a lone wolf.
I thought he spoke English and just chose not to because he thought he was too cool.
That is entirely possible.
Like, speaking English is beneath him, so he's going to speak his native language. Which, if they would have actually explained that, I'd be like, oh, okay, now I hate this guy more because now he's also arrogant and a master criminal.
Exactly.
But now he's just that guy who all of a sudden,
he wasn't even that good.
In the middle of all these conversations, I can hear Sigourney Weaver, I can hear Gao, and then I got to read this guy's subtitles.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like, wait, it feels a little uneven when there's all that dialogue going back and forth between all the members of the band.
And then as far as it goes, I feel like every member of the Hand held their own against members of the Defenders. And then we see this guy, and he's like, oh, I'm the lone wolf, I'm the badass, I don't need anybody else because I can fight my own battles. And every time we see him in a scene, he gets the shit kicked out of him. Like, what is the purpose of that? Like, you're supposed to... If you're going to be the solo guy, if you're going to be the guy who has no other resources other than yourself to take care of everything, because if you want something done right, you do it yourself, you have to do it right. If you're not doing it right, what's the point of you being the leader of the Hand? You know what I mean? He gets bitch slapped by Elektra the first time we see him go into a fight and knocked unconscious. The second time we see him in a fight, he runs away. I mean, it's just... poor taste, I think. I feel like certain aspects of the Hand could have been developed a lot better, but at this point it's irrelevant because there is no longer the Hand, which is weird. And also probably not true. I mean, the level of damage that Daredevil sustained from that building collapsing on him tells me that an immortal thousands of year old person probably made it out in equal or better condition than he did. So
that's one of the things we'll touch on here in a minute. But let's get to that final episode, specifically something that happens to some of the big characters. One of the smaller characters is the detective from the Luke Cage series.
Loses her arm.
She loses her arm big time, and not even just like she loses a little bit. I mean, like
cut off at the elbow.
She loses a lot,
and she was dying too.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
She is still probably going to be a big part of Luke Cage.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially considering how at the very end, it was offered to her the enhanced robotics medical facility that Rand Enterprises owns. That she's offered to be able to go in there and we'll get you set up and you won't have to worry about the cost of it, kind of thing.
So Danny Rand will be the Marvel Netflix's universe Tony Stark. He's gonna
we already knew that.
Fitted with some, yeah, but he doesn't use the tech and all that. He's
but he is the billionaire though.
But he's gonna go ahead and throw some kick-ass.
I fully expect to see her in a more prevalent role in the next Luke Cage than
she's gonna have
a
Coulson-style arm where you press a button and a shield pops up. Or she can look like Terminator, which is going to be the whole mechanical thing.
Yeah.
That would be pretty badass either way. Yeah. One way or another, it's going to be fun to see. Drawing blank here. Going into the final few minutes of it, they each had their own individual battles. The girl from Iron Fist ends up fighting Bakudu, and she finally ends up defeating him.
Yes, in a great way too.
Yeah. So she takes care of that. Her story arc going forward, how do you see things going forward for her in Iron Fist's story?
Well, I think we resolved a lot of what was going on with Danny Rand as far as him having his PTSD dreams with the resolution of this show. So I think that is with as far as she's concerned, is gonna build a little bit more towards their relationship. We've talked about before how each demographic of the shows has, as well as the movies, has their genre, and I feel like Iron Fist is the love kind of romance version of the TV show. You know what I mean? As far as the TV shows go, so I think we're gonna see a lot more of her and Danny being in a relationship as far as just being partners kicking ass. Honestly, though, I expect her to die.
At
I really
point?
do.
Like in the next season?
In the next season.
Point?
I expect her to die in the next season. Because from what we know from the end of Iron Fist, first season, we know that the other dude from Kunlun, I can't remember what his name is going to come after Danny Rand. And he is just as skilled as Danny Rand. And if you follow some of the comics, and they don't follow everything in the comics with anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they do try to pick up the good bits to make it more, going forward, more story-driven, more cohesive, more combat this way, more than just, he's got a fist of iron and he just beats the shit out of anybody, so there's not really a point in him fighting this guy again because we already know he's better. I think that this other guy is going to come in and he's going to somehow also wield an iron fist. And it's going to come out of left field, even though I'm telling you now it's not going to come out of left field because I'm expecting it to happen, but when it happens, it's going to come out of left field, and I think it's going to kill Colleen. I really do.
It's possible.
But then again, as we've already seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, nobody fucking dies. So.
Which is one of the big knocks in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I fully expect Stick to come back somehow. Although I don't remember if Elektra cut his head off. I know she stabbed him through the heart, but I don't remember if she.
But I don't think Stick was immortal.
No, he wasn't immortal, but everybody's fucking died.
I fully expect to see him in flashbacks.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, maybe as Danny is dealing, or not Danny, but as Matt is dealing with whatever he's going to deal with in his story going forward, that he's going to have dreams or flashbacks or whatever, maybe even some kind of a Force Ghost kind of thing.
Right.
In whatever journey he takes.
Speaking of Matt, we talked earlier about the whole final scene with him.
Well, let's get to the whole final scene, the entire final battle.
Yeah.
That would be a good time to talk about that.
I was really happy with the sacrifice play on Matt's part.
Let's talk about the entire final battle. Let's start at the beginning. So they go down there, and Elektra is having it out with Iron Fist, and she, of course, tricks him into busting out that wall and getting to the dragon bones. I know, so did I. The whole fight scene, I was like, why are you even throwing a punch, dude? This is what she wants you to do.
Exactly.
But whatever, we need it to happen so the story can move forward. But, so they finally get in there. You find out it's dragon bones.
Right.
That is what they use to turn into some kind of goop that they use to continue to live one life to another. I hope that gets explained at some point because I don't know how you can.
I don't think it would.
I don't know how you can take these dragon bones.
It's like
make them
essence.
some kind of liquid and goo, and then do that. I hope that gets explained somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Because the whole time I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you find these dragon bones, you cut them into little slices, and you see them carrying these little slices of dragon bone out, but you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, it's this goo that she poured in there to bring Elektra back to life and make her what you made her. How is it in bone form now? How do you get there?
Right.
They just kind of skip over the process and expect you to just figure it out on your own or just to accept that it happens. And I'm like, well, I kind of want a certain amount of explanation into the process because you brought Elektra back, you've made her Dark Sky, you've apparently been using it to keep yourselves alive for however many lifetimes.
And now you've ran out.
And now all of a sudden,
how much did you have to start with? That you ran out with.
I mean, you had several.
Did you have a whole dragon and then you ran out over the course of 2,000 years?
You had several thousand years to keep all 5 of you alive for who knows how long, and all of a sudden you use the last bucketful to bring Elektra back. It's like,
Also, why haven't you been like why are you waiting until you only have enough to bring one person back to life to go after the new section?
But we get down there, and then the lone wolf guy. I thought his death was kind of anticlimactic.
Absolutely.
It's like they're fighting with him on the elevator. They throw him down the elevator shaft, and then to top it off, he didn't fall like 20 or 30 feet down the elevator shaft.
Oh my God.
He fell like it had to have been probably 15 stories underground until where he lands. Now,
on his back.
Physics be damned. He lands on a piece of rebar, and the only injury he seems to have sustained is the rebar through his chest that kills him. And I'm thinking to myself, if I fall 15, 20, 25 stories,
I'm dead.
I'm not. The rebar is the least of my concern. It's the cement poisoning that's going to get me. The sudden impact, the sudden stop. But the only injury he seemed to have sustained.
Well, he was spitting up blood, and he had it like coming out of his nose, and it was on his face.
But that was still just weak injury.
Superficial.
If he'd have fallen that far and hit anything, it probably would have impacted him a lot more because he was still conscious.
15 stories hitting the ground, he would have.
He was having
the back of his head would have been in his eyeballs.
He was having this conversation with Gal after landing on the ground, and the only significant injury that was visible was the rebar.
Right.
And I'm like, can you at least, if you're going to throw him down an elevator shaft and have him fall 15 or 20 stories, can you just show like a quick jump cut to the pile of goo that would be this guy?
And that would be it.
The fact that Gal manages to walk up to him and have even just that moment-long conversation with him was just silly. But that leads me to something that I find very interesting. As I recall, doesn't he say what's happening to her?
Yeah.
And she says the end. And then Gao simply backs out of
right. We don't see anything,
and we don't see anything that happens to her. So we have to assume at this point
that
Gao gets
I don't know that she necessarily backed out of it. When she said the end, she was staring up into the void. And then I think the last time we see her, she was like hiding behind one of the bones of the dragon, and then she just kind of like disappeared. But yeah, when she said the end, she was just kind of like staring at the elevator shaft, like.
I really don't think that we've seen the last of Madame Gao. She's got to come back.
Absolutely not.
Because I think there's still a lot that she can contribute to Danny's story.
I think there's still a lot she can contribute to Daredevil's story. When Daredevil's story picks back up, he has no driving force anymore.
Well,
why doesn't he just put up the hood? Why doesn't he just put it up and actually go back to normal?
I think Daredevil's story is going to give a lot of his background this next coming season. Because, and I'll explain this to you in a minute, what the significance of Maggie, but I think you're going to end up going a lot into his upbringing and things like that, a lot of the background, because what you know of Daredevil right now is that his dad died, he ended up hooking up with Stick makes him, a blind ninja, and that's pretty much all you know about where his story starts. You don't really know much about anything before going blind, before all this stuff. So, finally it ends up, he gets everybody out, it's just him and Elektra down there, and the dialogue between the two I thought was pretty good. He whispers something to Danny as Danny's leaving, saying, "Dude, I'm not getting out of this. Just get everybody out." And Danny reacts. You knew what he said,
right?
He wasn't telling him anything unusual. You pretty much knew as soon as he whispered that in his ear. I kind of thought you should have just went ahead and played that dialogue, said it out loud. because Danny would have
Everybody knew he wasn't getting out of that.
Yeah, and it didn't look good. I mean, there's no other way out except this elevator shaft. The elevator at that point had been destroyed, and I really don't see Daredevil climbing up, 20 stories of elevator shaft in 2 minutes, no matter how good of a blind ninja he is. So, if they're down there, just Daredevil and Elektra, or Matt specifically and Elektra, because it was not Daredevil fighting Elektra, it was Matt fighting Elektra. She kind of comes around at some point in the second half of the season to who she really is, but continues on down this path, kind of like, to hell with it all.
That kind of really confused me, too.
Do you ever think there was any point in that fight where one of them wanted to kill the other one? Because Matt clearly stayed behind because he wanted to try to save Elektra, so I don't think killing her was really a choice in his mind. Was she actually trying to kill him, or just...
She said that it was just fun. And then at the end of it, she was just like, she wanted to be together with him forever. But I think she wanted him to see things from her point of view, which at that point in time was apparently, fuck everything else. There's just you and me. I don't care about them. I don't care about them.
Because in the end, she ends up pretty much the same character that Matt falls in love with when they first meet.
Right.
Because he's always been kind of like the Boy Scout, and she's been the kind of the rebellious, rambunctious, I'll do bad things here and there as long as it aids me getting what I want.
Right.
I won't go out of my way to do bad things, but if it's what I got to do to get what I want, then fine. And I think that was one of the things that kind of was the wedge between them in the beginning, what ended up separating them the first time.
Right.
And it seemed like this time it was pretty much her doing this, not Dark Sky. That she was like, well, here I am, this is what I am now, and I want Matt forever. And so she was doing that as Elektra and not as Dark Sky.
Right.
So the building comes down. Do you think Elektra survives this?
Considering that Elektra, I can't remember specifically if Elektra had him in a chokehold or he had her in a chokehold.
Well, they were kissing as the building was coming down.
Oh, well, that's right. So they were on more or less on top of each other, and Matt comes out alive. I think she's probably alive too.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on who ended up finding Matt. And now we'll talk about that last probably 30 or 40 seconds, where at the very end of the episode you see that Matt is not only alive, but somebody has pulled him from the rubble. He is in some
Which
kind
is
of
also fucking outstanding.
Suspension of belief when it comes to Marvel movies, because everybody lives, nobody ever really dies. But he has not only is he not in the rubble, he's been pulled out by some nuns.
Right.
And is in a bed being tended to by these nuns. And one of these nuns calls for Sister Maggie. Says, tell Sister Maggie he's awake. I realized after doing a little bit of reading that Matt's mother's name is Maggie. So I'm wondering if...
I was certain that she was dead, though.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched the first season of Daredevil. Yeah. So I don't recall if his father or if Matt or anybody from his past actually says that his mother's dead or not. I don't recall. It's been a while since I've watched season 1, so I could be wrong. But his mother's name is Maggie. Now, I don't know that this will be his biological mother, or if the reference to Mother Maggie is just a nun who just so happens to be important, because he does have that pretty strong relationship with the priest that he takes confession with.
And Stick also, I mean, the Chaste was also kind of like a religious organization, so they could have been masked in
maybe
Christianity somewhere.
So the question now, leading into season 3 of Daredevil, a couple of them actually, is who is Sister Maggie? Is this actually his mother, or just somebody named Maggie for Easter? If it's just kind of an Easter egg for comic book fans, and what is the next season going to bring? Because it's obviously he fought Kingpin in season 1. In season 2, he dealt with the people he was dealing with. He came across Punisher and all that. But this is going to be a much more personal story going forward for season 3 of Daredevil, because he's not just going to be in Hell's Kitchen fighting, the muggers and drug dealers and whatnot. He's in this coven, apparently surrounded by these nuns. So it's going to be a different start for season 3, and it's going to go in a different direction. What do you see going for season 3 of Daredevil?
I fully expect, and we've talked about a lot of stuff that like what we think is going to happen, and I feel pretty strongly when I say that 9 times out of 10 I'm right about what's going to happen. I feel like we're going to see Amnesia. Matt's not going to know who he is. He might know his name's Matt, but I don't think he's going to remember he's Daredevil. We might see a loss of his senses. He might be just an average blind guy for a couple episodes. I could see that happening. And then I fully expect to see the resurgence of the criminal kingpin. He wasn't anywhere in season 2. You can't tell me that guy is going to.
Well, he had a small part in season 2,
but he was still in prison.
But he was still in prison.
I can't see him being in prison that long. That makes no sense. I fully expect him to come back. Now, as far as what the main plot is, I don't know, but I expect to see Fisk back out. I expect to see Elektra. As far as how Elektra plays into it, I don't know. If she comes back to be the love interest again, if she's... I don't expect to see her fighting Matt.
I think at this point Elektra has to be a villain, if she comes back at all.
But I can't see her fighting Matt. I can't see her intentionally fighting Matt unless it's literally just, oh, I see you're about to do some good. I'm going to jump in and fuck it up. But I really don't care that you're trying to do good. I have no hand in what you're doing. I'm just here because I want to fuck with you.
But it makes just as little sense for her to pop back in the picture, and it wouldn't look very good aesthetically if she walked back in the room and she's like, "Oh, you're here. I'm in love with you," and she's like, "Oh man, I'm so glad that we both survived this building falling down." And then you just kind of look past everything that happened in the Defenders, everything that she did.
Right. I believe that she is still alive. I believe she's going to be in the series a couple more times at least. I don't believe that it makes sense for her to be alive, though. I think it would make more sense that she just dies off here. And then
this is Marvel, so we'll see.
I know, but it feels more progressive for the story. Like you just mentioned, we can't see them in a love interest thing. She's already claimed that she doesn't see good or evil. She doesn't give a shit, and all she wants to do is be with Matt. So I fully expect her to not be a villain in full villaininess, because she's not going to have evil plans to foil what's going on. She's not going to go out of her way to try and, take over New York or anything like that. I just expect to, if she's still alive, I expect to see her to pop in to fuck with Matt for no other reason to fuck with Matt, and then disappear again, and then pop back in every now and again, just be like, nope, you can't do that. And then
if she's going to pop in once or twice here and there, that is to me is a for sure sign that there is something else, another conflict coming between her and Matt.
Well, whether that can come down the road, but it can't be in next season.
Whether it happens in season 3 or somewhere else. So if she pops back up at all, we know that eventually her and Matt are going to come to blows again, one way or another. Now, I really don't want her back for season 3. I say let Elektra be dead for a while.
It's easier for her to just be dead.
It is easier for her to just be dead, and I would rather her just be dead, because I really hate the way Marvel brings people back from the dead. Yeah. It's just so annoying anymore. So overall, rate Defenders in all the Netflix series for you.
No, the Netflix series for me. So I got a lot of love for Daredevil, at least the first season. So that's gonna be up at the top. I enjoyed Jessica Jones and I enjoyed Iron Fist, and I would say that they're probably going to hit spot 3 and 4. Luke Cage is kind of down at the bottom for me. It was a great show, but it wasn't what I needed it to be. You know what I mean? So it's down in the lower tier. I would have to put Defenders in the top 3. Probably second. Like I said, I gotta give props to Daredevil for kicking it off. Just like the first Iron Man is always going to be the greatest of all the Iron Mans. I think Daredevil is going to be the greatest of what we ever see in the culmination of the small screen. But right below that, as of right now, is Defenders. And then Jessica, Iron Fist, Luke Cage.
I'm with you on the number 1 spot. I think Daredevil is every bit as good as anything you're doing in the MCU on the big screen. I think they put that story together really well. They've cast it great. That show has just been dominating. I actually put Luke Cage second. My only real knock on Luke Cage is I thought they had killed Cottonmouth a little early. I think you could have stretched out a little more,
Absolutely.
had that be kind of a late season twist, and then have stuff happen a little fast, more furious the last couple episodes the way it did, instead of stretching that out the last half of the season. But I still think Luke Cage is the second best show. I put Defenders as a whole third. I think it's really, really good. It's not everything I wanted it to be, but I was not disappointed at all. And I'm really looking forward to going back and hitting episode 1 of the Defenders again and going back and really analyzing it frame by frame instead of just watching and experiencing it.
Right.
I like Jessica Jones and Iron Fist a lot more than most people do, but they're just not as good as everything else that's going on with Daredevil and Luke Cage.
Yeah.
I really want to see them. One of my knocks on Defenders is they didn't do much to build Jessica Jones's character. Marvel, by and large, is not, and I mean like across their entire universe, I mean TV and movie and everything, they haven't really done what I would like them to do with some of the female characters, especially their main characters. As much as I like Black Widow, she's kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Pepper Potts is still at times just the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones, I mean, it's the first legit female superhero in the Marvel Universe that we've seen yet. And I know we've got more coming, but it's the first female superhero. And they made her, they marginalized her a lot in her own series. They made, I mean, because by all means, Kilgrave was a better character than Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
And while I like Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, I love her as Jessica Jones. I think she's perfect. She looks great in the part. She acts it well and all that. I don't think they're writing it well. And Kilgrave, to get a guy like Matt Smith to play Kilgrave, that guy who already has...
Not Matt Smith.
Or not Matt Smith, but...
David Tennant.
David Tennant, yeah. Sorry.
Different doctor.
I was thinking the other doctor.
Different doctor.
But to get David Tennant, who already has a huge following as Doctor Who, he's been in a bunch of other stuff that has really got his name in his face out there. Harry Potter. Yeah, that one appearance in Harry Potter, people still remember that.
Oh yeah.
And I know they remember it because they also attached him to Doctor Who, and Doctor Who is this.
Well, I think I think Harry Potter was the first time we saw him in a psychotic villain role. And god damn, did he do a good job with it.
Well, that's the thing, is he's every bit as good as Kilgrave.
Exactly, yeah. They brought him, but he did.
And I'm actually really...
He took it dark, and I loved it.
Yeah, and I'm really, really glad that they said he's coming back for the next season of Jessica
I just don't know how.
It doesn't matter how to me. I will swallow with a spoonful of sugar the fact that they bring somebody else back from the dead just to see this guy on screen again because he's perfect for Kilgrave.
I want to see him get. I want to see him get more powerful though.
But I really want to see Jessica Jones become a stronger character and not such a mess.
Right.
I want to see her find a little bit of her, center her own chi, to use the Iron Fist reference. I want to see her find herself a little more and not be so flighty and all over the place.
Right.
I want her to be a stronger character because she's still too damaged for me.
Yeah.
All these male characters in the Netflix universe have, for the most part, maybe with the exception of Danny on a couple levels, kind of has their shit together. We have no idea what's going on with Matt from here forward, but I mean up to this point anyway. They all have their shit together for the most part. But Jessica's the one that's just kind of like, she doesn't really have a lot going. She just drinks herself stupid. She takes a couple of odd cases here and there. Even in the Defenders, she basically trips and falls into this situation. It's not like, we talked about they had pulled like a lot from Iron Fist and a lot from Daredevil. She was the one, her and Luke Cage were the ones that really kind of stumbled into this thing rather than they had part of their story arc kind of meet in the center into what would become the Defenders.
But we know infinitely more about Luke Cage and his past than we do about Jessica.
That's true, and I do want them to explore that more because they had that little Easter egg in the first season of Jessica Jones.
Well, about the company.
Her friend holds up the dress or the costume or something like that, and it's the costume that she wears in the comics.
Right.
And they talk about her. She tried to be a superhero once and didn't work out. I want to explore that more. I actually want to see her.
I do want to see that more, but I want to see more of how the fuck did she become what she is. Because in the original flashbacks of not the original flashbacks, but like the earliest flashbacks where she is a small child, even back then she had her powers. Like she broke a sink and like crazy shit. She had this strength before she was adopted, obviously. But how? Why? We know why. We always wondered through Jessica Jones why. We see Luke Cage is bulletproof. Why is he bulletproof? We don't understand that. What do they do in the first, 3 episodes of Luke Cage? This is how I got my superpowers, And then we're still left to wonder with Jessica Jones. We understand Matt Murdock. We understand Iron Fist. Jessica Jones, we have no... Her series, her first season wasn't anything about her origin. And it was all about fucking up this one guy.
The battle between her and Kilgrave.
Yeah, so we have no frame of reference for why she is the way she is. And once we get that backstory, once we get from how she became enhanced, and then from that point to her childhood to being the superhero the first time and it failing, and then up to where we saw her with Kilgrave the first time in the flashbacks with Kilgrave. Once we have that filled in, I think we'll see her character flourish a lot more. We'll see her story be more involved than just a drunk, pretty good looking PI with super strength.
Yeah, and questionable friends.
Exactly. Once we get some more backstory and some more understanding of why she's an alcoholic, non-superhero private investigator, it'll make more, like, it's not like retconning, but it's like, once we see that insight, and it'll probably, I don't know that it'll be in season 2 of Jessica Jones that we'll see that insight, because as you already said, Kilgrave's coming back, and it's like, oh cool, so we're gonna get another season of season 1.
Yeah.
So he's gonna spend the entirety of it hunting down one guy. But if we get the backstory, if it's not in season 2, if it's in season 3, once we get the backstory, I think from that point it's gonna be like, oh, all this shit makes sense now. It's going to be like that epiphany moment, like, that's why she does that, that's why she does that, that's why she does that, that's why she did that, that's why she did this, that's how she managed to do that kind of thing, you know what I mean? As far, it's like the opposite of how we see everybody else. All the other stories are a progression from youth upward, or from the beginning upward. We see Luke Cage go to jail for something he didn't do. We see him get experimented on. We see him become, Luke Cage that we know. Matt Murdock, we see him as a kid. We see him get blinded. We see his dad die. We see him get adopted. And then we see him become Daredevil. We even see pre-Daredevil. We see Vigilante just hiding his eyeballs. Fucking.
Yeah.
And then, even from there, as far as Iron Fist goes, we really started off by just seeing Danny Rand come back to the city, but in the first couple episodes we're seeing him explain to everybody, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me, here's the flashbacks that show the plane going down. We know the progression of all these characters, but with Jessica Jones we're doing it backwards. We're starting with the end of a villain, working our way backwards to the backstory. And when we get to that backstory, it's going to be like watching the series in reverse. You know what I mean? And I think when that happens, it's an interesting take on the way that they're doing it. And I think that if they pull it off properly, if they pull it off properly, Jessica Jones is going to rise as a whole series. It's going to rise from where it's at on the list of what everybody thinks are the best in the MCU small screen. It's going to go from being at the bottom to being closer to the top, because they took it a different direction than everything else. Nobody's gone in reverse with a television series like that before. You know what I mean? And they'd be smart to do it that way. It'd be pretty awesome to see, I think.
Final rating, 0 to 5 stars in Defenders.
Defenders, I'll give it a 4. Definitely, at the very least.
I'm with you on 4.
5 is too much, because there's stuff that could have been better, and then anything lower than that
would be wrong.
Because it was great. It was enjoyable. It has rewatchability. I'd go back and watch it again in a heartbeat, and that's something that I really look for.
Yeah, I give it a solid 4 stars. I mean, I think it'd be a travesty to give anything less. A few holes here and there. I would have structured the season as a whole a little bit differently. Like I said, it's they pulled everybody in just the right direction at pretty good times.
Yeah.
And when it finally all did come together, it was kind of like that moment in the Avengers where it kind of had that camera rotate around them all on the street.
Yeah.
and for the first time, you really see them all getting ready to do some ass kicking. I really love when that moment finally hit. Folks, that's our review. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you liked the video, click the little thumbs up down at the bottom. Let us know. Subscribe. We'll have more content coming. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.